Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about a topic that is getting brought up again due to the recent controversy surrounding the pricing model for the Nintendo Switch 2 and its games. Which, for those who don't know, the games for the Switch 2 are going to be priced at $80 for digital copies and $90 for physical copies. This has, needless to say, upset many gamers, especially given the recent hostile response from the Nintendo of America president to just go buy a Nintendo Switch 1 if the Switch 2 is too expensive for you. But it has also revived another discussion, that being that defenders of this decision are trying to adjust prices of previous eras of games for inflation to suggest that games are cheaper now, actually. And gamers need to simply shut up and consume the modern slop. And while the recent controversies surrounding Nintendo are the latest catalyst for reviving this particular discussion, it also has been a discussion that has been popping up every now and then for the industry as a whole. And so for that reason, I'm going to be tackling it with regards to the industry as a whole as well. Let's compare the price of games today to what games were priced as back in 2004, back in one of the best years in video game history. To start off, your typical AAA release back in 2004 was priced at $50 on consoles, and on PC it was actually priced cheaper at $40. For the sake of it, let's focus on the pricing for the console versions of games, which was $50 as previously mentioned. When adjusted for inflation, that does admittedly equal to $85.62 in the current year. Keep in mind though, that's for an actual full version of a game, which for current-gen Microsoft and PlayStation games, you're not getting a full version of the game for $70 now. The $70 price point is for a shell version of the game, a empty hollow husk version of the game. And for that reason, it is not comparable to what people were getting for $50 back in 2004. In truth, the actual full price for AAA games these days fluctuates. A good number are merely $100. Some, however, can be $130. And in some extreme cases, such as Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, they can get up to $200. And it would ultimately have to be these versions of the games that you would have to use to meaningfully compare to what gamers were buying for $50 back in 2004. So already out of the box, things aren't exactly looking good for modern AAA gaming, because even adjusted for inflation, games are legitimately more expensive once you start comparing apples to actual apples. But there are other things I can point out that makes things look even worse for AAA gaming these days, such as the fact that microtransactions are very much a thing still, a factor that simply was not the case back in 2004, or the fact that since this controversy was caused by Nintendo, that these games back in 2004 were of course physical copies, which would mean that in comparison to the Switch 2 games, they should be compared to the $90 price point of the Switch 2 games, at least for physical copies anyways. And then of course there's the factor that games back in 2004 did in fact run right out of the box, and didn't require months or in some cases years of patches to become even remotely playable. In other words, games back then were not only cheaper, and were not only kept as one basic standard version that had all of the actual in-game content within it, meaning you wouldn't have to fork over even more money to get the actual full version of the game, and in addition not only didn't hound you for additional money via microtransactions, but on top of all of that, they were more reliable and actively played better. In every metric possible, games back in 2004 were a superior product to what they are in 2025. And there are other factors I could bring up, but honestly this has become beating a dead horse already, so instead I'll summarize by saying that the claim that games are cheaper now once you adjust for inflation, well, that's simply a case of cold hard cope that ignores so much context that it is not a serious argument in the slightest. No, the full version of the game was in fact cheaper in 2004 than it is in 2025, and no amount of cope is going to change that particular reality. Now, is this going to change the minds of idiots who think that games being made more expensive now is good actually? Well, no it's not. And I have no expectations that this video would accomplish that. But for those who are tired of seeing this dumb argument being played out, out, well, here's a good video you can use whenever one of those guys tries to make that exact argument. Then you and your friends can simply sit back and laugh as they twist themselves into pretzels to try to justify why Microsoft Flight Simulator costs $200 for the actual full version of the game, and how it's still somehow cheaper than a $50 game back in 2004. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.